In honor of Torrance's 2012 centennial, we're exploring the people, places, and things that have played a key role in making the city what it is today. As part of our centennial programming, we're speaking with those who have served the position of Torrance mayor. Mayor Frank Scotto has served on the council for more than a decade. In 2006, he became mayor after a heated election against an incumbent. He also served on the Civil Service Commission, the Transportation Committee, and the Youth Task Force Committee, among others. Today, he joins us to share his perspective on some key events that have shaped Torrance history. Hello, I'm Colleen Farrell. Thanks for tuning in. And Mayor Frank Scotto, thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, a pleasure to be here.
Take us back to 1955 when you first came to Torrance. Tell us what brought you here and what the city was like back then.
Well, let me tell you, back in 1955, the city of Torrance was a very rural agricultural town. And as a child, I was very young at the time, 7 years old, parents moved here to actually have a farm. And we moved on to 237th in Pennsylvania. And we had a rabbit farm, which is hard to believe because there wasn't many rabbit farms at the day. But we were right next to a very large chicken ranch, too. And so as a kid, you couldn't have an environment that was more friendly to children. And I was very fortunate. Everything across Crenshaw Boulevard was completely farmland, or actually, at the time, completely open land. And so we had a great time as kids to be a part of that environment.
So it was a lot like growing up in the country then. Yes,
it was. And, you know, it was hard work. Don't get me wrong. It was very difficult to grow food and grow rabbits and things like that. But, you know, it was part of what it was. You didn't know any different, and it was fine. And matter of fact, the environment was great to live in. It's too bad the kids don't have that opportunity today.
Now, what ultimately happened? We know development eventually encroached on all the farmland here, but what ultimately happened to your family farm?
Well, we were obviously selling rabbits for food and at Easter time, both. Easter time was obviously big for us, but we would sell rabbits every Saturday morning. We would actually go to San Pedro on a route with other people who were selling, just like a mobile farmer's market. We would go to a corner and other trucks would come. We'd sit there for about 15, 20 minutes. People would come out and they'd buy the rabbits, and then we'd move on to another corner. And there was probably about 20 or 30 corners in San Pedro that we would do that. And by the end of the day, everything was gone. It was all sold. And it was amazing, though, that culture existed, but it worked.
Mm-hmm. Which of the Torrance schools did you attend when you were growing up?
Well, actually, I went to a school in Lomita, which was called St. Margaret Mary's Elementary School. A great school at the time. I did walk back in those days to school, hard to believe. But it wasn't that far away, and so we went to school at St. Margaret Mary's. And I went to high school. I went to a all-boys Catholic school called Furman La Soenne, which was in San Pedro on Western and 25th Street. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was an all-boys Catholic school that it was a primarily sports school. You had to go there and play a sport, some type of sport, and I played football, and it was a great environment.
Now, after college, I know you stayed local. You attended El Camino, and then you went to Long Beach State, and then you were called to serve your country. Tell us about that experience and how that shaped your future, ultimately.
Well, I was a person that worked at a very early age, so at that moment in time when I was just out of high school, obviously I was going to El Camino full time, but I also was working for Chevron Oil at the time for the corporate company, and then I went on to Long Beach State. But when I was at Long Beach State, I was drafted in the Army, and back in those days they gave us lottery numbers, and I had number 17, so the very first month I got my draft letter, so it wasn't very long that I went. It was just a couple of months later that I actually had to report. And it seemed very, you know, serious, of course, and very grim being in that situation because I was married and I did have our first child. But as it turns out, that was a great experience for me to go in the Army. And not that I needed to learn discipline or anything, but I saw that environment a little differently than most people, and worked really hard and did well. But of course, being in the Army during Vietnam was a very, very difficult time because people didn't view us as heroes as we do today, thank God. Back in those days, people saw the military as the evil empire, basically, and it was disappointing. But at the time, again, like I said, I was working for Chevron, and so when I came out of the service, I went back to work for Chevron, and very shortly after that, I decided to become a Chevron dealer in 1974. And so I opened my first Chevron dealer in 1974.
Now, you raised a family here as well. How had Torrance changed for your children from the time when you had grown up?
Well, you know, that's funny because we were very involved in the community way back in the early 70s, late 60s, and we were very fortunate. We had a very early family, and our kids went through local schools, went through Madrona Elementary School, and then to Bertlin and to West High. And then our daughter went on to El Camino and then went to Pepperdine and graduated Pepperdine and became a school teacher. And so she actually taught in the Torrance Unified, but presently she's at St. James. And our son did the same path, except for after El Camino, he went to San Diego State and graduated with a business degree, and he's come to work in our business full time. He graduated in 1996, and he's been working at Frank Scotto Towing and Full Circle Fuel, which is Chevron gas stations, since then. So we're very fortunate. They're right here, right in town, and I get to see my grandkids virtually every day. So we have 5 grandkids, and we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah, I want to talk about Frank Scotto Towing because I don't think you can live here in Torrance without knowing that name. I know it's saved the day for me on many occasions when I've locked my keys in my car or my battery's been out. Tell me how that business got started from the gas stations. You've been in business 36 years now, and how you've maintained your success all these years. Well,
in 1974, you know, I started with one Chevron gas station, and it was a very difficult time in 1974 because it was right after the 1973 oil shortage, before you were born, of course. We had a very difficult situation in 1973. What was the first embargo that we had, and so there was long lines of gas stations. In '74, we were just coming out of that, and that's when I took the station. And I worked the station by myself for the first 6 months. It was literally 16 to 18-hour days, and but I was at the right place at the right time, and people were very receptive to having friendly customer service. And so it wasn't long after that that I was able to start hiring people. And within 6 months of owning the station, I bought my first tow truck. And the reason I did that was because it was obvious that I was going to need a tow truck because we were doing a lot of repairs at that location, and we were having a lot of cars towed. And I felt that why spend money to have somebody else do that when I could do it myself? And so I became the first tow truck driver for a number of years. And wasn't within a year that AAA came to us and said, "Would you like to have a contract?" And they gave us a contract which enabled us to buy 2 or 3 and 4 tow trucks right away, and kept on growing. And we got as high as 65 tow trucks. And then we've had, you know, a bad economy, since 2007, so we're down to 50 tow trucks today. But we plan to get back up there, hopefully, if the economy comes back. It's been a very interesting business to be in because it is very management intensive business, and it's a very customer service business where we try to take care of people as best we can, and sometimes it's difficult to make everybody happy, but in general we believe that we do a very superior job for providing service to people, and people tell us that all the time.
And you service local law enforcement as well. How has your business sort of extended into the community, and it's also a big employer as well?
Well, you know, what happened was when started the business plan of going down that path of having a towing company, we had options, and there is a lot of options in the towing world, and so we decided to try to do all different kinds of service for people. And so in the towing world, we provide every type of service except for one. We don't repo vehicles at all. That's a separate kind of an entity. So when I say we provide all the different kinds of services, we try to become everything for everyone. And so we went after police accounts, you know, and we do that kind of towing. We do towing for motor clubs, and we do that. AAA, we do all the other motor clubs in Southern California. We also do freeway service patrol, which patrols the freeway. So we have many, many different kinds of business inside of towing, in the sense of we get people that actually cold call us from the Yellow Pages still today. And so when some part of that business slows down, let's say, for example, if AAA calls slow down, we would rely on other things to pick up the slack. And you'd have to do that because when you have a lot of employees working, you can't have all your eggs in one basket, basically. And as a business model, that worked very well. And so we do that today. And we're very pleased to say that all those years, we started in '74 and then moved in 1985 to the location we have today on 223rd and Western, and we're still there today. And we've operate other businesses too. I still own Chevron gas stations. In the city of Torrance, we have the one at the corner of Cabrillo and Sepulveda. And Chevron is basically my roots in the sense that I hope that I always am a Chevron dealer because I think that they've treated me well and taught me a lot of things too. And you know, all those things help us become more rounded with the service that we provide customers, because Chevron is obviously a very service-oriented business where they teach us to treat customers very well. So that we rolled that over to the towing world that we're in, and hopefully people notice the difference when they call us and a driver goes out. It isn't a perfect world. We realize that there is times that things don't go quite as planned, but in general, when you have the statistical numbers that we show, that 98% of the people believe that you did a good job, that's pretty pleasing. That's
a great success story. I want to switch gears here for a second and talk about an organization that's been very important to you through the years, AYSO, and what was your involvement in that, and why has it been such a passion for you to be involved?
Well, you know, I can only say that I'm so fortunate to be a person that's been involved with AYSO. I've been also involved with other organizations, Little League and a number of them, by the way. But back when our son was in kindergarten, he came home with a piece of paper clip to his shirt talking about AYSO, soccer. Well, back in those days, I was a football person, and I didn't have any idea what kind of ball they used in AYSO. So I thought there was just a kind of a strange sport, but he wanted to play really badly, and it was a Friday night, and he wanted me to call, so we called, and the person said, well, look, you know, you're late, and if your son's going to play, you're going to have to coach. And I said, well, I don't know anything about this sport, and they said, well, don't worry, we'll teach you everything. Well, that didn't quite work that way, but very quickly I got very involved, and I did coach, and I've been coaching ever since, and that was a very great experience for us because I started in 1977 coaching, and I'm still coaching today. Now, what that has done for me is opened up the world of so many other friends that I know today because of AYSO and Little League, of course. And to this day, I still know those people. I see them on the field today. Now, AYSO for youth is one of those sports that I just can't say enough about because it creates the environment of everybody gets to play, and everybody gets to play at least a half a game, or most times 3/4 of a game. But every child feels that he participates in such a way that he's part of the team because he is part of the team. And as a good coach, you make sure even your weakest link on the team understands that they are participating and have a value to playing well. So it's been very rewarding for me to be a part of it. I'm so happy that I'm able to do that all my life, and I highly encourage people not only not only AYSO, but any organization that you can get tied into like that, because it opens the whole world up of a friendship with people, and to this day, I mean, it really made a difference in my life.
Mm-hmm. Now, you're a family man, a businessman. You've been deeply involved in the community. Tell us how this led you to first run for council in 2000.
Well, you know, over all those years with AYSO, as we mentioned, but all these other organizations, PTA, believe it or not, I was really involved with them, Heart Association, just a number of organizations like that, got us to the point where we realized that volunteerism is a critical part of being part of society. People have to realize that we all need to roll up our sleeves and help out in some way or another, being a coach, being a referee, being anything like that. And so in the late 90s, a friend came to me and says, how would you like to be on the Civil Service Commission at the City of Torrance, because they had an opening at the time. And I thought to myself, that would be just up the same line of being in business where Civil Service Commission does the hiring and firing and all the disciplinary action of all the city employees. And I thought that would be pretty simple. Lo and behold, I didn't realize how much work I was getting myself into, but it was very rewarding, and I really enjoyed doing that. Back in 1997, 98, 99, the city of Torrance had a lot of issues back then with the employees, and we were very busy. And so it evolved that I felt that in 2000, when there was 3 openings on the city council because of term limits, that was the first time the city of Torrance had the effects of term limits, basically thought it would be a good idea to run. But you know, we had a lot of discussion, and a lot of people gave their opinions about me running. It didn't seem like people would vote for me so easily because of the kind of business I was in. The towing world has maybe a semi-negative connotation. But so in 2000, there was the 3 openings in the city council, and 13 people decided to run, and so did I. And lo and behold, the community felt that I was the person they'd wanted, and I came in first place, and I was significantly ahead of the second place person. I really was humbled by that. I was really pleased that people entrusted me to be on the city council, and ever since then, I have been really excited to represent the city of Torrance.
The city made some really smart decisions early in your term that sort of have helped guide us through some difficult and challenging financial times that we've been going through recently. Tell us about that.
Well, you know, when I first got on the city council, I was very fortunate. I was on the city council with previous Mayor Dee Hardison and Marcia Cribbs and Jack Masurlian. The 3 of those people were legends, basically, and all 3 of them helped mentor me to be a good council person. You know, Mayor Hardison, took us aside and explained a lot of things to us, which helped a lot. But what happened was she entrusted me to be on the government finance committee, which did the budget for the city of Torrance. And from that experience, from the onset of being a council person, I was a critical part of the budget process. And in 2000, it was their very first year, because through the 90s, the city of Torrance had difficult financial times. And 2000 was one of the very first years that we had a surplus in our budget. And so we as a city had very low reserves. And I argued at a city council meeting that we needed to put all that money aside into our reserves. And we did that first year, and we did it a number of years after that. So when these tough times started in 2007, we were well positioned to withstand the downturn in the economy. And I can't say that enough fiscally, how conservative the city of Torrance is. We're very pleased to have a council that understands the necessity of making the necessary cuts to keep us balanced. And we've done that. And I'm very pleased to say the city of Torrance is in relatively good shape, but we had to make cuts to do that. So all those years, the city of Torrance was financially positioning itself for this eventuality of a downturn, and we had to start doing that again. As the economy turns, we have to be very cautious to put money aside, because who knows how long it might be that we'll have a downturn. But we're obviously all hoping that it never does happen again, but we have to be prepared.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll find out what sparked Mayor Scotto's decision to run for mayor. Stay with us.
Any questions?
What kind of service plan does this come with?
Unlimited.
Can I keep my same phone number?
Absolutely.
How do I change the ringtone?
Just hook it up to your computer.
Does it have a camera? What's the warranty? Does it come in silver? Can I put my party shuffle on this? Does it have a 3.5 millimeter headset jack? You sell a lot of these?
It's the one I carry.
You ever get those phantom vibrations in your pocket?
Any questions?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Ask questions. For the 10 questions everyone should know, go to ahrq.gov.
Welcome back. In celebration of the city's centennial, we're chatting with longtime Torrance resident and current mayor Frank Scotto on some of the events that have shaped Torrance history. Now, Mayor Scotto, I know development was a big issue back in 2006 when you ran for mayor. Tell us a little bit about what was happening during that time.
You know, over the years, Torrance has bragged that the city of Torrance has been a balanced city. And what most people don't realize that what that really means is, you know, when Torrance was established, it was consciously done where we have residents and industrial and commercial land to provide jobs and the things that are necessary to have a balanced community. And so those lands were set aside. Well, I was on the city council and I was elected in 2000, and during the course of the first mayor's term, which was Mayor Dieter Hutterson, I agreed with the direction the city was going. And then a new mayor was elected, and in 2002 that happened, and in the period between 2002 and 2004, we started to rezone property in the city of Torrance. And I personally didn't agree that we should be doing that, and another person on the council also didn't agree that that was the proper direction. But lo and behold, so did the residents of the city of Torrance. They adamantly disagreed with rezoning a property that created a lot more residents in the city. And so in 2004, a lot of homeowner associations approached me and asked me if I would consider running for mayor. Well, knowing the history of the city of Torrance and knowing that no incumbent mayor has ever lost an election, I thought that would be a very difficult path. And so it took me a couple of months before I really made that decision. Well, there was a moment in time that at a council meeting that I decided I had to do something, because there was one piece of property that was rezoned from industrial to residential. And that evening it was a 6-to-1 vote. I was the only person that voted against that project. And I decided right that evening that I had to do something. And it wasn't going to be easy to unseat an incumbent mayor. And it was some sleepless nights, to say the least. It was very difficult to take the nerve and actually tell the public that I was going to run against him. And that was in 2004, and the election was going to be in 2006. So there was going to be a campaign of virtually 2 years. And that's what happened. And for 2 years, I campaigned to run for mayor. And obviously, everybody knows the outcome of that. But people believed, and rightly so, that we had enough of rezoning commercial and industrial property to residential. Not to say that we don't need to build residential. We do need to build residential, but on property that is zoned for it. And to take existing commercial land that it could be retail or industrial and make it residential was a mistake. And here's why most people in the city of Torrance believe that. One element that was very hot at the time was traffic, of course. And as putting more homes in, people felt that traffic was going to increase. But really, to put that aside, the real problem was that you were taking the job base and moving it away from Torrance. And that's where the traffic really came from. So the fact that the city was balanced with industrial and commercial property, people theoretically could live in the city of Torrance and have a job that's very close to their homes. But as you rezoned that industrial property to residential, people now had to drive to other places to get that job that they had. And that's really what the problem was. And people understood that, and that was the battle cry for the 2006 election. Mm-hmm. So what happened was, fortunate for the city of Torrance and developments, literally approving of new property development stopped in 2004, basically. So we've had now almost 7 years of not approving those kinds of projects, and I'm sure it'll continue for the next couple of years. But I'm not saying that we won't build new properties. I'm saying that it will only be built on zoned property for residential. And so if that process continued, the city of Torrance would be very blighted in the sense of having homes that weren't sold yet. Because if we continue to approve from 2004 to, let's say, as late as 2007, when the market really fell apart, we'd have probably another 2, 3, 4, 1,000, maybe who knows how many homes that would be unsold today. And that wouldn't be good for the housing market in the South Bay. So right now, as we speak, there are still some homes that were actually approved that far back that haven't been sold today. And people know where they're at, but so we're kind of in a roundabout way, kind of fortunate that happened that way, because we've helped the city of Torrance recover, and we are recovering quicker than most other areas are, because we don't have a lot of homes on the market to sell.
And the city really makes careful decisions when they decide what companies they want to come into this area. What sort of, from a big picture perspective, guides them in making those type of decisions?
Well, you know, actually, this is really complicated in the sense that we're a very aggressive city. We go after companies to come to the city of Torrance. We didn't go after Walmart, but we go after companies to locate and fill sites. And we're very fortunate, since I've been mayor, we actually started the Department of Economic Development, which is a person who actually aggressively goes after looking for companies to locate to the city of Torrance. I'm sure people that are watching this right now say, well, gee, why don't you fill all the storefronts on Hawthorne Boulevard? Well, you know, we're actually working on that, and to tell people what we're planning to do and all those things would be difficult because there's so many different possibilities right now. But excitingly, we know that Hyundai obviously opened a car dealership, and we're hoping that very soon we're going to be able to announce another car dealership that's going to be coming onto Hawthorne Boulevard. Mm-hmm. But in addition to that, we're in the throes right now of the Del Amo Mall being completely remodeled, and that process is going to start real quick. But along Hawthorne Boulevard, we're getting inquiries from a number of companies that want to come today. People realize that, yes, the economy has been very bad, but they feel that if they come to Torrance now, they'd be at the beginning of maybe the turn of the economy. So some of these companies, it may take a year or two for them to build a new facility, but they'll be perfectly positioned when the economy turns around. Hawthorne Boulevard is a very, very attractive place for a retail outlet, and if you're a retail store, you want to be on Hawthorne Boulevard. Having said that, we have a number of storefronts that are empty, and we realize that, but we're hoping that all those bad storefronts that are empty will create opportunities for to have different kinds of businesses in the city of Torrance that we're going to be very pleased in the future.
Speaking of development, I know parks and open space have long been a priority here in Torrance. What progress has been made during your tenure to increase that space? You know,
I'm very pleased to say that we've had great opportunities, and we continue to have opportunities to find open space and create parks and other kinds of opportunities for open space. We, since I've been on the city council, we've been fortunate enough to open up this Discovery Park on 226th and Ocean, and then right down the street we did the addition to Lago Seco Park. But the star joy for me is the fact that we were able to develop the property at the corner of Anza and Lomita Boulevard, which is now named Seaside Heroes Park, and very appropriately named after 3 fallen soldiers that lived in that community. And I'm very pleased that we were able to do that, and I'm very excited that if there's a legacy that anybody would say that what you leave behind, mm-hmm. that park will be that legacy, because I'm very pleased that we were able to do that. You know, obviously, have been in the Army myself during Vietnam, and knowing so many of my friends that were killed in action, being able to create something like this in a little way to honor those people is just great. It just makes me feel very humbled about that. But in addition to that, we're also looking at other locations in the city of Torrance that hopefully in the future we'll be able to brag that we have either additional park space or maybe athletic fields for football, soccer, all the different kinds of sports, and we're working at that today, and we're hoping that in the near future we're going to be able to open some additional places in the city of Torrance. It all takes money, and we realize that, but it's one of those things that as a community we have to address the needs of the community, and as time goes on, it's going to be more and more difficult for youth activity to be placed at schools because of the schools being remodeled and reconfigured and so forth. So they're taking away fields that are used either for soccer or football, for those different kinds of things. And so the city has to try to offer those same things. And so we're going down that path, and we're trying to make that happen.
I know the city has avoided the troubles of some other cities recently in the ethics department, and recently a Blue Ribbon Committee on Ethics and Government was formed during your term as mayor. Tell us how and why that was formed and how it has evolved.
Well, you know, being on the city council for the first 6 years of my term and then running for mayor, there was a big outcry for ethics in politics. And not necessarily just about Torrance. It was nationwide, basically. People felt that politicians were running rampant and doing things they shouldn't be doing. And obviously, there were some local cities that got us in a lot of trouble and shed a light on a lot of cities. Well, way prior to this, after the 2006 election, the community felt that the council of the city of Torrance had to be held to a higher standard. And so back then, I formed a Blue Ribbon Committee on ethics, and that group of people did a superior job of getting us to the point we are today. And it has evolved now to a 3-ribbon panel to help us create policies for not only the council, but people who are candidates, and then someday, well, in addition to that, also for our commissioners, and then someday for our employees. But there's 4 parts to that that hopefully will be done. And when a person decides to run for council or an elected position, they'll know what the community expects from them ethically, and so they'll sign a policy, and then, they have an option not to sign it, and if they decide not to sign it, then the community will know that too, but we're hoping they will, and it holds them to a higher standard in the sense, I'm going to be a resident of the city of Torrance someday again, and I am today, but when I'm not the mayor, I'm hoping that the person that's the mayor and the council, I can look upon them and say, I feel that they are ethically at a higher standard, and they'll do the right thing every time, even when our backs are turned. That's when it really counts. Because, when we're at council meetings and people are watching what we're doing, you can only expect us to do the right things. But when people think that we're at other places is when it really counts. When someone's not watching is when it really counts. And that's what we want. And it doesn't matter if it's just the city of Torrance, but it's all forms of government. It's sad that we are even talking about this, because it shouldn't be that way.
And another accomplishment I know that you're particularly proud of is the establishment of an event called Student in Government Day. And so I want to talk about this a little bit.
Well, that was also a brainchild of my wife. We were sitting there one night watching TV, and we were watching something related, and she said, well, wouldn't it be kind of cool if we can get students to come to the city council and actually put a city council meeting on? And at the time we were talking about her and I thought that was really kind of far-fetched, and it never would happen. But it kind of bounced out around the city a little bit, and lo and behold, everybody felt that was a great idea. And I brought in previous Mayor Dee Hardison and my wife and a number of other people, and we go out every year and we create a question to 8th graders in the city of Torrance, all 8th grades, public schools, private schools, every school is welcome. We send letters to all of them. And we usually receive over 1,000 applicants, sometimes much more, and this committee reads all the letters, and then we choose 22 students out of that to come into the city of Torrance and job shadow all the department heads and the city council and the mayor. And then later in the day, we actually rehearse a city council meeting with all the students, and then at 7 o'clock we actually put on a city council with the students in charge.
Wow, that's a great opportunity.
And it's phenomenal. It's, it's one of those days that I have probably the most anxiety than anything I do, because I really want those students to have a good experience. And as it turns out, they do. And a number of them have come back and said how it's changed their lives, because sometimes we're not looking for the A students to succeed in this. We're looking for just any students. So sometimes we get the C students, we get the B students, and so forth. And sometimes we get that C student that's really floundering, and he gets this opportunity, or she does, to come on the city council and do something like that, and discover, wow, I can do this, and I can succeed. And over the years, we've been so fortunate to have incredible kids that were chosen to be mayor. And this past years, we've had some superstars, and all those kids that have done that have shown to us that they're capable of running a great council meeting. Matter of fact, I'm literally in awe of them, because I think that when I was in the 8th grade, I'm not so sure I would have been able to do that same thing. But that learning experience to come into the city and take tours of the police department, the fire department, and all the other departments gives them a more rounded experience to see what government's all about. And you never know, that might open up an avenue for them to decide to go into public service, or other types of things, public speaking, doing the things you're doing.
They might want your job someday.
I truly encourage them to look at that aspect, to go into politics at an early part of their lives. And so we're hoping some of those kids can come back someday and say, I started in the student government day right here. And I'm hoping that program continues after I'm no longer mayor, because I think that it's something that we should do.
Mm-hmm. On a more serious note, I know the city has, we touched on this a little bit earlier, but the city's gone through some challenging times economically recently. What has the council done to sort of navigate through those waters to come out financially solvent?
You know, it actually has been really tough times, because our problem started way back in 2002. Actually, we had to cut $12.2 million in 2002. Then in 2008, we cut $8.9 million. 2010, we cut $5.5 million, and here we are going to have to cut possibly another $3 million. Lucky for the city of Torrance and the residents, we have a very conservative council that is fiscally sound, and we've made the necessary choices to cut back. And what we've done, over the period of time, through attrition, we have not laid anybody off in the city of Torrance, but through attrition, we've kept open slots of people when they've retired or have quit or whatever, and not filled those positions. And during these tough budget times, we were able to cut positions without affecting people's jobs and save the city of Torrance significant dollars. Now, that's just one little thing that we've done. Another major thing that we've done over the years is civilianize the police department. There was jobs that were done inside the building that were done by police officers, but now are being done by civilians. And one of those shining stars is our CSI unit. Yes, just like you see on TV, CSI. Well, the city of Torrance, a city of our size, now has a full-time 7-person CSI unit that does that, rather than police officers rotating into that. And what it did for us, it created truly professionals that were in CSI unit. And so that's just one thing, but we've done a number of other things like that in the police department. Similar in the fire department, we repositioned people to create another paramedic unit. Mm-hmm. So we've done a number of things throughout the city, and it really is looking at the city as a business and trying to make everything more efficient. There is a lot of other things we can do, and I'm sure people that might be watching this say, oh yes, but there's still people that do things in the city that need to be watched after. Well, yes, it's a big business. You can imagine that if you have 1,700 employees, you can't make sure that every single one of them is doing the proper thing. But I'm going to tell you right now, we have very dedicated employees in the city. I'm very proud to say that I think the Torrance is so fortunate to have such a great workforce. And they're working now with a lot less resources, and they're doing the job and without cutting back services. And so we're very pleased to say that. And not very many communities can say that.
And back to a more positive note, the reason that we are here is for the city centennial, celebrating its 100th anniversary, 2012. I know you've played a key role in the planning of the celebration for the centennial. What has that been like, and what can the city expect over the course of the year?
Life is timing, and I'm so lucky to be the mayor of the city of Torrance while we're going to be celebrating our centennial, 2012, and we are planning some great events. It's going to start in November of 2011 and then go all the way to October of 2012 with a culmination of a big party. And during the course of those times, there's going to be so many different things that people can go and have fun and celebrate our birthday of 100 years. One of the ones that I'm hoping that people who are watching this do have the time to go be partake of is that we're going to have a time capsule, and somewhere in the summer of 2012, we'll be putting a time capsule in downtown Torrance, possibly at El Prado Park, and it should be a great event, and I'm hoping people will come to that. And also in October of 2012, there will be a large party at the end of all this that will possibly culminate with a parade, possibly, and we'll see how that goes. And it's kind of early in the planning stages, but I'm very excited because we have everybody in the city of Torrance is excited about this, and we have a website that people could go to look at those events. And I'm sure that somebody who's watching this can find something that will please them to be a part of. And we're looking for volunteers, though.
On that note, do you want to share any special message as a longtime Torrance resident? Do you have any special message you'd like to share about the Centennial with us?
Well, I hope that everybody wants to be a part of this, because the fact that the city is 100 years old, we're very fortunate to live in the community that we live in. Torrance is a great city, and I'm so proud to be the mayor of the city of Torrance. I can't say it enough that I think that people should recognize they're so fortunate to live here.
Well, I want to say thank you for sharing your perspective with us today, and on behalf of the city for all of your contributions to us.
Well, thank you very much.
And thanks for tuning in to this special edition of our Centennial programming. Please continue to tune in throughout 2012 as we get up close and personal with the people, places, and things that continue to shape the direction of our city.